Okay, Shalom Aleichem. This is Tanya at G4. We've called this series Wide Open because we're going in whichever, we're sticking to the path, but we're, going off a little bit when we feel that that's worth doing. We're up to chapter Gimel. So in chapter Aleph, in chapter 1, we introduced what the Rebbe called the Nefesh HaChiyunis, the life-giving soul, also sometimes known as the Nefesh Bahamis. That basically is what gives you animation. It's in the blood. We said just like electric charge is held within the battery acid in a battery, the actual liquid of the acid. So too the Nefesh Bahamis is in the blood in the same way, mamish in the same way. So is it physical? Not really. Is it spiritual? Kind of. Like it's really in the middle. It's the link between physicality and spirituality. It's the gas of the duck of the gas. It's the coarse of the refined and the most refined of the coarse. That's what they refer to it as. And it's just hell bent on being. It just wants to be. It wants to live. Which really the more pneumius of what it wants is pleasure. But pleasure, we'll talk about that today, B'ezrat Hashem. Pleasure's a big topic, and it's a little more, usually it's a little more, nuanced and maybe complex than what we maybe thought in the past. So it wants pleasure, let's say, but really we'll say it wants to live. It wants to be. And so once you've got your survival taken care of, and you're not having to fight for food and shelter, etc., well, how does that express itself? And all you need to do is just go onto the internet for 5 minutes, and you'll see exactly how that expresses itself when you have all of your essentials taken care of. Yeah, this crazy proliferation of everything online. Everything online is about the Nefesh Bahamis trying to become bigger and stronger and more recognized and comparatively bigger, etc., etc. That's just the same thing. Just once you've had the...
Is that the animal soul you're referring to? Mm-hmm. Is that the animal soul?
That's the animal soul. They call that animal soul, yeah. So that's something that we're connected to. We have one of them. And it's looking to get bigger and stronger and better, etc. Acquire, be recognized. Then we introduced the godly soul, which maybe we'll call the neshama. He calls it here the nefesh elokis, and we broke it down. It's more complicated. There's more parts to it. It's got a structure to it. We haven't explained what it wants yet. We're going to explain what it wants much later on. Well, really, what it wants is just to go back to the Ribono Shel Olam. It's a chelek elokayim mimao. It's a piece of the Ribono Shel Olam, and that's what it wants. It just wants to go back, which means it wants to become nullified back into Hashem, just like a match. If you strike a match, you have a big bonfire in front of you, and you throw the lit match into the bonfire. Well, what happened to the fire? What happened to the fire on the match? Did it go out?
Consumed with a bigger fire.
Yeah, you can't really say it went out. It didn't go out, but is it there anymore? It's not there anymore. Yeah, that's the tithe of the nefesh elokis.
Fire's never there anymore. Any fire's never there anymore. Same fire.
Yeah, so say that. But the imagery of it, anyway, it looks like a separate fire. That's a really good point. So its desire is the exact opposite. The desire of the Nefesh Bahamis is to become more and to define its boundaries and borders, to build up its perimeter wall higher and stronger, thicker, etc. Yeah, and the desire of the Nefesh elokis is the exact opposite. It just wants to merge back into reality and have nothing to do with this delusional world. That's the fight. That's the fight. The fight is not against internet porn. Yeah, the fight is not against being horrible to your wife. The fight is not against overeating. The fight is not against fill in the blank. that's just what the fight appears to be against. The fight's against this perimeter wall. So you have to now work out how is it my addiction to this, and this, and the fact that I keep screwing up in this, and this, and I think I've got all these endless avoiders to take care of. Yeah, how is it that that's really just the manifestation of this need to be, which is really in a deeper sense this desire for pleasure, but that it comes before it's the pleasure, it's the need to be. So I think we said this, but Descartes famously said, although I don't think he actually said it, I think therefore I am. Yeah, but the according to Tanya, the way I understand it is you would say, I experience pleasure, therefore I am. When you're experiencing pleasure, you never exist more than that. Yeah, that's why when we're with our wives, the ultimate selfless act of bringing a child into the world happens with the most intense pleasure, because it's only at that. That's a big thing, but that you need such selflessness at that moment. So therefore, the only way of such selflessness is when it's mixed up with your intense sense of self. That's when you can be the ultimately selfless. When your sense of self, meaning the ultimate level of pleasure, is so in your face and so activated, so it's necessary. There's much more to it than that, but that was a good point. Okay, so we spoke a little bit about the idea of the levush of the nefesh Bahamis, of the nefesh Elokis. This idea of a interface between the soul and the world, how it does mitzvahs, etc. We just spoke about the levush, and we said that there's the idea, without getting into the details, we said that you can have a sensitive garment, or you can have a coarse garment. Yeah, so your movements are restricted when you're wearing a coarse garment.
Is that like your personality?
That's one of the things. That's probably the most. That's probably that for sure. That is
before machshava dibur ma'aseh. This is levush.
Well, no, it's really machshava. This what we're talking about here, machshava. But that's a big subject in itself. But personality is for sure part of your levush. You could say anything that you have is part of your levush, as opposed to what you are. And we've just been given a massive zchus in our generation, not in the past few months, to be blessed with AI, because AI now is letting us understand that you're not a seichel. You have a seichel. That's not what you are. That's amazing. That's really amazing. For the first time in reality now, we can say without question, I'm not a seichel. Why? Because they created one. They made a seichel, a disembodied seichel. So we spoke about this levush. Levush is the idea of how you interface with something else. You could call it a filter, maybe. Yeah, but you can't interface with something else without a levush. To just throw something out there is etzem, essence, is not experiential, not experienceable. You can't experience. You can't experience essence. Essence is beyond experience. You can't experience someone's essence. Why? Because how do you experience stuff? See, we're so caught up in the Western world of like experience that we can't even entertain the thought that something could be too halig for experience. And we're just looking for that the eyes closed and the eyes rolling back, that merged into oneness experience. Yeah, that's all klei goof. All of that stuff is all to do with the goof. Yeah, reality is beyond experience. So then you're like, well, what does that mean? Yeah. So you have to, once we start getting purer and purer, and we stop looking at the world in context of us, yeah, then that will start to make more and more sense. But it shouldn't make sense until we've actually moved much, much closer to that idea of we're just a feature in the game. The game's not about us. And then you can quite happily deal with the fact that it's not about experience. And that will also open up the doors to real shalom bias as well, by the way.
Would it be accurate to say that this lavush in Parak Bays is just like your guf? Everything that's not your nefesh b'hamas.
It's just like what?
It's your guf. Like everything that's not your nefesh b'hamas and your nefesh elokis is your guf. Whatever the seichel included. Is that what that lavush is?
Is it the goof? Well, goof is a relative term, so you could say that, but it doesn't help much in that. There's what's panimi and chetzoni. So whatever is motivating something, that's called the soul, and what's being motivated is called the goof. So that happens on many levels. So, for example, your relationship to your wife is neshama and goof. Yeah, that's zocha nekeva. Your zocha, she's nekeva. But her relationship to the kids, she's zocha, they're nekeva. If things are going right, yeah. And then your relationship of your oldest child to the younger children, again, he was nekeva lagabe your wife, but now he's zocha lagabe his younger siblings. So it's all relative. So guf neshama is always a relative term. It's like all kalim. It's the kalim of the higher level is the ore of the lower level. With me? So it is, but it doesn't really help because there's so many madrigas there. So we explained that lavush was to do with thinking processes, and that was dependent the sensitivity of that lavush, is dependent on the kedusha by which we're with our wives when we bring the neshama down. Okay, and kedusha means for what we're saying here, it means unity and transparency, which would mean we're with our wives and it's about our wife. One thing that Rav Manis said that I didn't know how moedic it was until after hearing it many, many times was this idea, excuse the crudeness of what I'm about to say, but the idea of what a man will say to his wife after the Maisa was how was it? Yeah? That is usher to say, legamre. It. There's you and your wife. There's no it.
The act itself is not it.
There's no act.
I'm saying the act is
that's what people think.
Not it.
So people, but in a holy mind, there's no act.
Right.
There's just the wife. There's just you coming together with your wife. That's it. It's a very important thing to erase that phrase from your vocabulary. That phrase shouldn't exist because that's bringing. There is no emtsai between us and our wives. No emtsai. People with me? Okay, excuse the crudeness. Okay. So now we join you, Perek Gimel. So the Rebbe really explained where the nefesh elokis comes from. Yeah, that was really what he said. And he gave another couple of other elements as well, but that was chapter 2, where the nefesh elokis comes from. Now the Rebbe switches gears and he explains what the nefesh is made of. What constitutes its body, so to speak. Remember, everything has a body and a neshama. Everything, and if it exists, it has a goof and neshama. So now we're going to be learning about the goof of the nefesh elokis. So it comes from this highest place called Chochmah Elah, whatever you want to call it, or even higher maybe, manifests in Malchus Atzilus, in the Shechina, if you want to call it that, Knesset Yisrael, and then it comes down through the other Ilamas, and it starts to pick up form, yeah? It picks up an intellect, it picks up emotions, and then finally when it lands here, it picks up behavior as well. That's the final, that's like the Makkah Patish of its surah. So you have, and it's really important to get this like in your mind clear, and obviously remember we're not talking about physicality, but the nefesh has a body, it has clothing, and it has a soul, okay? And it breaks down even more. The soul has a soul, you might call that Ratzon. And what's the soul of Ratzon? Meaning we said Neshama Guf, If Ratzon is the goof, what would be the neshama of Ratzon? What would that be called? Huh? Tainug. Oineg. Yeah, pleasure motivates Ratzon. What do you want? What gives you pleasure? But let's scratch that. Let's scratch that term. This is really, really helpful. We always refer to something as giving us pleasure. Yeah? Scratch that term and use the term X touches my pleasure. That's really a very profound paradigm shift. Chocolate does not give you pleasure. There's no pleasure in chocolate. Chocolate touches your pleasure. Even to call it your pleasure is a concession, because that's really you. Yeah, but just because we don't relate to ourselves on such a foundational level, if a person really related to himself as his pleasure, he would be a psychopath and a narcissist. It's good that we don't relate to ourselves on the animal side, on the human side. If you really related to yourself as the essence of what you are, on the human, on the mortal side, on the created side of things, yeah, then that would be very, very bad news for you and for everybody around you as well. Yeah, why? Because then you would take your sense of pleasure so ultimately seriously that it would be mevatel everything else. So that accounts for people like Ted Bundy, Yamach Shemoy, and any other serial killer, rapists, etc. Their sense of pleasure was so real to them that it nullified everything else. Everything else. So we don't want that. So it's good that we say it's our pleasure as opposed to that's me. We have pleasure. But the way it's really, the mechanics of it is that there's pleasure, the pleasure of the soul, but again, it's not pleasure of the soul. There's no way of saying it. That's the soul. That's really what the soul is. And then that now becomes manifest into Ratzon. Yeah? Because pleasure by itself just kind of wants to hang out. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't want to go anywhere. It's contained. Yeah?
What's drive? What's drive?
Drive, that would be Ratzon. So you can't really separate pleasure and Ratzon. But we do, like when we talk, because we talk very technically in certain places, very, very technically in certain places of Tanya, it's very helpful, but we really just call it Ratzon. That's why I was even like a little bit, masupa whether to even speak about so much about pleasure. But really there's pleasure is panimi and Ratzon is chetzoni. Ratzon is pleasure going outward. That's like I now want, that the pleasure is going out to get what it wants. Yeah? So now pleasure goes out through Ratzon. Ratzon is a chaotic energy that is neither good nor bad. At the level of Ratzon, there is no, it's just energy. It's like, is electricity good or bad? It depends what you're gonna plug it in, what you're gonna plug it into. Yeah? It can go either way. So Ratzon is a chaotic energy. What does Seichel do? Our intellect. What does the Seichel do with Ratzon?
Controls the Ratzon.
That's true. There's a really good word for it.
Channels.
Even that's better. There's
Filter.
Strategize.
Direct.
What?
Strategize.
Getting there.
Directals.
You're all good. You're saying right, but I found the most helpful word is it orders it. It orders the energy. That's what Seichel is. Seichel is Masader. That's what Seichel does.
It puts it in order.
It puts in it. Seichel just is Masader stuff. Seichel's Masader. Yeah?
It makes sense out of everything.
What?
It makes sense out of everything.
It makes sense out of everything. Yeah, it's Masader, exactly. It orders. Absolutely. That's what it does. It works out the first, the second, the third. It structures it.
Is there an Neshama to Tainug, or that's the highest level that we're going to talk about?
Maybe, yeah. Maybe. Maybe just call that Amunah. Maybe just call that Hashem himself. Depending, if you're talking about the Neshama, if you're talking about the Nefesh Bahamis, you might call that the Chalal Panui. Or the Makom that got left from the Shvira. So now, once this chaotic energy comes down from Ratzon, now it goes into our mind, and the mind orders it, and now it will, it's called give birth to emotions. you'll have emotions towards the idea, and then emotions need to express themselves through behavior. Okay? So I'm going to draw this down. I'm going to draw this. This is very helpful for us to cut. Because if you cut this, like really, really deeply, you're so beyond any psychologist that I know of, that I could imagine. It's so beyond, if you really cut this deeply. So at the very top of the whole, you have oinek. Yeah? Now this, you could say it goes out through Ratzon. Okay? Now Ratzon gets ordered through Seichel, and now Seichel gives birth to Midas, and now Midas expresses itself through Levushim, which we translate as behavior. That's thought, speech, and action. That's a really helpful thing to know very deeply. Okay? So if you're going to group any together, we'll group these two together. Oinig and Ratzon are grouped together. Seichel and Midas are very separate. What would be here? What lives in between Seichel and Midas? Anyone can think? This is a very important thing to know.
Action.
Deeper?
What's Mechaber Seichel to Midas?
Das.
Thank you.
You gotta stop.
So is Das a function of the Seichel or a function of the Midas?
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. Das is really, I mean, we talk about it as of the Seichel, but that's the reason why one of the reasons why we have 4 arms and the tefillin and on the head, because Das is Koilel, Ava, and Yira. So you should have 3, Chochmah, Bina, Das, but we have 4 to hint to the fact that within Das, we'll explain what Das is, B'ezrat Hashem. Within Das, you have Ava and Yira, Nichlal in Das. Okay? So once we really understand this, like very, very deeply, it puts us in such a strong position to be a nice person. It's amazing. And to not be about taiva, and to not be caught up in, to not be pulled this way and that way, to not procrastinate, to not and to really work hard and to learn and to to help. All this is the key to the whole thing. It really is. It's like just
So levushim is machshava. What's the difference between the machshava and levushim and the machshava and the seichel?
Okay, good. So let's learn weiter. Okay, so now the Rebbe introduces the Seichel, where he explains that there's 10 spheres. Yeah, everyone's heard of the 10 spheres? Mm-hmm. Yeah, from Kesed to Malchus, or you could from Chochmah to Malchus. Chabad doesn't really talk about Kesed so much, but we're not going to go there. But the Tanya brings that he's going to be speaking about Nefesh Rakis, but this structure, this system, is a mirrored system for the Nefesh Bahamas as well. It's the system of a soul. There are differences, yeah, but the differences are details, yeah, but the big picture is the same thing. So everything in reality works through the 10 spheres, yeah. The 10 spheres are the interface, so to speak, what Hashem uses to create and control the world. They're like filters in a sense. I have such a timer to explain something. I don't know if it's the right thing to explain.
Let it out.
What? You say that now. 20 minutes from now, I don't know if you'll prefer the same thing.
What does your dad do?
What?
What does your dad
That's
say
a
to
good
do?
question. I had that in I quit photography this week. I made a retirement party. I stopped being a photographer this week. I've done it for I've been doing it for like over 20 years. So I had to make like a hard,
Line in the
hard
sand.
stop. So I made a party at my house, like for all the photographer people I knew. And the Shabbos before, I had a guy come to my house who's like, he's a photographer I know very well, a close friend of mine. He's very contentious. He likes to, he's contentious. And so we sitting at the table and I told him, he knew I'm throwing this party yesterday. And he was like, you sure you should quit? You sure? And then he started saying something different to everyone else. He's like, but you make such a kiddush Hashem when you're taking pictures. You talk Torah and you're like, you're like, it's such a kiddush Hashem. You meet so many different people. And I said to him, you know what? I didn't make the decision with thought. So yeah, I know. If I was making the decision through thought, then this would go on and on and on and on and on. But this decision wasn't made through thought. I'll tell you a nice story.
You fire sale your camera equipment. That's the...
I'm giving it. I'll keep my cameras, but I'll give the rest of it.
Put it in the mikvah.
Put in the mikvah. So I just. This is a very nice story. That I got a kiddush cut for my wedding. I've been married nearly 20 years. And my kiddush cut. We have a lot of kids, and this was like last year and a half ago, whatever. It's been through the washing machine, We lost the plate. It was when I bought it, it was Mama's beautiful kiddush cup, and it kind of jiggles around, and it's all kind of bent and whatever, And I was actually at the table with this guy I was just talking about, and I think it was Yom Tov. I can't remember. I think it was Yom Tov, and I poured a wine. There's a whole bunch of people at my table, and I just look at this little Nebuch cup. I'm like, I think I said it inside. Come on, you kiddush cup, please. And I never had anything like this in my life before. Yeah, he answered me yes. Not with any words or sound. Just every fibre in my body knew that that's a Philadelphia Kabel. So if it wasn't a bunch of people there, I would have started to cry and I started to say thank you as if I had a new cup. We can't even relate to this because we're so caught up in thinking that if you ever had such a thing, you would start analysing and thinking, and then before you know it, you couldn't try. It was so profound that I would have cried if there weren't people around, and I just started to say thank you as if I'd had a new cup. That was how much I knew. And I knew that I had a new cup. Like, it's just a matter of time now until Hashem sends me a new Kiddush cup. And then by Parshas Miketz, which was a few months later, by Parshas Miketz, out of nowhere, someone bought me $1,000 Kiddush cup. Yeah? Miketz was the Parsha with the kois. Slicha. Hashem made it special. I'm saying we have to admit we're so caught up in thinking that we can't imagine that there could be a knowledge beyond thinking. Yeah? There really can be. B'ezrat Hashem, we'll all know of it very soon. That's my little... There's Hashem. B'ezrat Hashem. But in the meantime, what we can do is try to work on toning down the thinking. And you know what the first, most essential step in slowing down the speed and the intensity of your thinking is? The first most essential step, in my mind, without no question whatsoever, is get a phone like that. Sorry to make everyone feel uncomfortable, but it's worth it. It's really worth it.
It's a safe zone. You're good here.
Yeah.
Nobody has a phone in this room.
Yeah, shit. I'm the only one with a phone. I just don't see how it's possible with those. I do understand how essential they are, etc. And then people will say, I got a kosher one, and all I have is Waze and WhatsApp. And I'll be like, Waze is fine. WhatsApp's the worst thing you can have. WhatsApp is the worst. And you're just like, yeah, I just got WhatsApp. You're like, oh man, I'm finished. Done. It's like, that's it. Game over. But now, Hashem threw us a rope that you can get WhatsApp on your computer, on your desktop. So you can actually still live in 2024. And, you can still live and
why
not.
Were you saying that about the WhatsApp before the computer end? Well, why were you saying that? Why do you say like that's it with the WhatsApp versus?
Because how do you operate with that thing in your pocket? Your mind is going like this in every direction.
Because a regular phone also, a smartphone or a dumb phone also has text messaging, right?
Not this. Yeah, that's another thing that's very dangerous. Text messaging is. I had a client one time, yeah, who wanted to pick up some albums, and she phoned me, very angry, and she was like, "I've been texting you for the past 3 days. Why haven't you answered her?" I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a text on my phone." And she said, "That is so irresponsible of you."
Wow.
Yeah, she's really angry.
Yeah.
And I listened, I said, "Wow." And I said to her, "Wow, I appreciate, I'm sorry about that you've been upset by that." I said, "But you should know that if we were sitting one-on-one together in my office, yeah, I'd be able to give you 100% of my attention." She shut up immediately. So you're so used to in a conversation with somebody and we're just like that.
It's not like you pick up a newspaper. Do people do
Yeah,
that?
but it's much worse because this is something connected to you. So it's just like something you're talking to somebody, they just like this, and then they come back to you. That's what it's like. I'm saying it doesn't begin. The avoided. I'm sorry to make everyone feel so uncomfortable, but it's impossible in my mind to. It's impossible. I understand how important it is to have these devices, but you have to work on many. If you can get rid of it, yeah, which or keep it in your office or something like that. Which I have. I have a smartphone in my office, yeah, and it stays off until I need to get like a text message from Google or something. It stays off in my office. I don't bring it with me anywhere. I use this. Especially with my family, that's the worst. It's just crazy. Imagine feeling. I'll tell you another story while we're on the topic. Yeah, this is even more difficult for people to hear.
More than the last story?
I'm going to leave.
The last story was enough.
This is a horrible story. I was taking pictures at Hasna. It must have been 6, 7, 8 years ago. I can't remember. 6, 7 years ago. I remember it was in Beit Shemesh, and the Chos was a really put together good guy. Mamash a good guy, yeah? Really, And we were taking family pictures and of the Chos's side. And they're all there. And the dad had just moved to the side. I found out later he was giving someone directions. He wasn't checking his Facebook. He was giving someone directions on his phone. And this Chosson... in front, it was the immediate family. It wasn't like all the guests. It was just pictures at the beginning. This Hassan, again, a really put together guy. You saw he just snapped, not in an angry way, in an utterly broken way. He was like, Abba, please, it's my Hasna, please put it away, please. And he was like tearing up. The father couldn't have got it in his pocket any quicker, and everybody there. Their heart just like tore in half. There was just silence. That kid, L'choira, had parents with smartphones for his whole adolescent life. And everyone there saw the whole thing just come out. We can't even imagine that. Maybe, how old's the youngest person here? My parents didn't have smart when I grew up. We had the phone in the kitchen. Imagine being second place to a piece of graphite. Second place always to a piece of graphite. That's pasha. That's crazy. What kind of trauma that does for a child? And again, we all saw it at this chasna. I can't think of anything more important than to, at least when you're with your family and when you're out and about, to have just something like this as opposed to one of these telephones, because they're we don't even know. I tell you, I always think of it like this, like with smoking. Cigarettes came out in like the mass smoking came out, like rolled cigarettes came out in the early 1900s, late 1800s. Yeah. It wasn't until like the 1960s until everyone worked out that their mum was crazy bad for you. We had like 70 years of just, they're great. Doctors smoking here, I smoke Camel, smoke, You see these people, their mind, the way the mind is going, you don't think that's going to lead to like crazy mental illnesses later in life and stuff like that? Forget the kids becoming second play, all this stuff is an important thing. I'm not coming to you from the side of, like the Knoisha, porn side. Yeah, anybody who's addicted to porn on their telephone or anything like that, they know more than anyone that it's the worst thing in the world. Yeah, but you don't need to talk to them. You just need to try and help them get out. But the more subtle treifkeit of it. I'll just give you another while we're on a roll. I'll give you another thing that is so destructive. Again, that people don't talk about is the camera function of your telephone. The camera function of your telephone makes us turn everything into a means to an end. Wait, let me just get a picture of this. Well, what about the actual event? We get a picture of it for later. So what's the event? The event is just a means to an end that comes later on. That's called, if you want to really be technical with the terms, that's called chas v'shalom, that's called turning kedusha into klipa.
This came from a photographer.
Yeah.
That's why he's out. That's why he's out.
You should see the camera on this thing. Yeah, it's like, you can print it.
Doesn't exist.
You can print it like that big.
Sleeve blur.
Right? Yeah. But that idea of taking pictures of everything,
Not present.
it's so treif. To say not present isn't like strong enough because that's obvious, but it's actually turning a whole, and the more important the moment, the more the taiva take the picture. So the more, you're a chasna, yeah, okay, take a picture, but the concept of not being there being there right now and saving it for a time later, yeah, is actually turning that into a means to an end. It's really destructive. It's really destructive. Okay, so that was us. We went off on one. So
Was that the thing you wanted to discuss? That was going to be the tangent of 20 minutes.
no, that wasn't. That was Hashem's. That was Hashem's decision there.
Be that guy. I really don't understand this entire entity.
Yeah, that's good. You shouldn't right now. We need to these ideas. We've been. What?
You've been building up to this over the last few weeks.
No. I'm assuming most people don't have much of an idea of what this is. The point is that we haven't really built up. We have a little bit, but one of the biggest misconceptions with Hasidus and with Kabbalah as well, maybe not with Kabbalah, people don't really learn Kabbalah so much, but with Hasidus especially, is that Hasidus is just like Vortlach, like nice, cute, deep, profound ideas, yeah? But the idea of like having to build information, like go into a university level physics year class, you have no idea what's going on. Yeah, you have to go back to preschool and start little, whatever, not preschool. You have to go back to school, and that's how knowledge works. Knowledge, what you in Kabbalah is called keys. Yeah, you have keys. Certain knowledge is keys to next level knowledge. But you could look at it, and this is what we're talking about. Because Hashem is the idea of binyan, of building knowledge. So Hasidus Chabad Hasidus specifically is a binyan, is such a binyan that is it's magnificent. But it takes a lot of time, and you have to build. So that's the answer to the question. So we've got these 10. Going back to the point, the Rebbe explains that the Nefesh Lakis mirrors the 10 spheres that Hashem uses to create. Mirrors, yeah, maybe mirror is not the right word. It devolves from, I'm not sure the right word, but it's based on that structure. And that's the structure of all of reality. All of reality works on that 10.
So also the Nefesh Bahamas.
Absolutely.
So it's holographic, right?
It's holographic, exactly. And each one of those 10 points also breaks down into 10 points. And each one of those 10 points breaks down, etc., etc.,
It's
etc.
nothing special, the Nefesh piece.
Well, that's what we're talking about here. That's how we're explaining it here. So it breaks down into two. We've got what's called Seichel and Midas. Yeah, we've got the three spheres of the Seichel. Yeah, or in how we call it Koichas and Nefesh. We don't call them spheres. Spheres is what we refer to how Hashem relates to the world. But here we talk about Koichas and Nefesh. So you've got the 10 Koichas and Nefesh. The first 3 are called Seichel. Okay, That is Chabad, Chochmah, Bina, Das. Okay? And then the next 7 are called Midas, which you could translate as maybe emotions, which is Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus.
How is Midos emotions?
How Midas emotions? Okay, that's a good question. On one foot, and this is really. See, people love complex. The idea of emotions being so complex that you can never you'll spend your whole life trying to unravel them and you'll never get there. Yeah, but they're really not. Emotions, the technical term for emotions basically is an attraction towards or a repulsion away. That's what emotions are. So love is wanting to get close, and fear, if you want to call it that, is wanting to move away. That's all emotion. It's actually in the English word emotion. It's just a movement towards or movement away.
Midos mean your fine points?
Well, midas really means like measurements, but the midas is cool. We call that the emotions. That's what we're gonna be using that word and emotions interchangeably. So
Malchus would be lumped into there also. Malchus would be one of these 7.
it is one of the 7. Malchus is the place where the emotions express themselves. That's really called behavior. Malchus is thought, speech, and action. So how does the seichel work? Okay, and we all know how the seichel works. The seichel, the genesis of the idea we call chokhmah. Yeah, everyone's familiar with this idea. We have like the seed, like the germ of the idea, and then like the male gives the zera to the female, and then within the female, she gives length and breadth and depth to that seed. Yeah, so that's the relationship of chokhmah and bina. Everyone knows that. It's the way I've learned it. When you get more technical, more granular, it's a little different. It's a little. There's a deeper side to it. Chokhmah really, everyone knows that the nakudas, the vowels link up with the spheres.
I don't know.
So you got 10 nakudas and you got 10 spheres. Comets goes with Kesa, then Seirei goes with Bina. Who knows what goes with? Patach goes with Chokhmah. And that really is a big indication. There's a bunch of psukim. I'm not going to get into the psukim right now. But really, if you want to understand it really on a very technical level, what is Chokhmah? Chokhmah is just an open space to what's above it. What's above it is what's on Oinik. Chokhmah is just the top part of the seichel. So Chokhmah is just like an open window that really allows light from above it to come through. That's on a more technical level. It's not a seed in a sense. That's not wrong, but to understand it a little bit deeper. In Chokhmah, you can look. Chokhmah is all about opening, all about being open. It's about bittul. Like I said, there's a bunch of psukim as well.
Hillel gives Hillel Parich gives the mashal about looking at a building.
Say again?
Hillel Parich, I think, right? He gives the mashal looking at a building and seeing the beauty of the building and like the skira achas, like seeing everything all.
Yeah.
And then Bina would be seeing the particulars of architecture and why it's beautiful to you, like breaking it down into particulars.
Yeah. So that's another way of saying it. That when you talk about the germ, the seed, the whole Indian. I give the example of a big property developer driving past some kind of massive wasteland, and he stops his car. He's like, wow! And you just look at him and you realise he's now seeing this, tremendous building that he's thinking of building. Yeah, that's Chokhmah. He sees it in. He doesn't see it in detail, but he sees the whole thing. He sees the whole thing. He has a vision. Yeah, exactly. He has a vision. And then he gets on the telephone and he calls up his people and it's okay, let's get this going. Now the people start calling the architects, they start calling the suppliers, they start calling the municipality, they start dealing with the details, yeah? That would be Bina. But this is still on a level, no building takes place. No actual physical building takes place. This is all intellectual, yeah? So you've got Chokhmah and Bina. And you can't really separate them. Chokhmah without Bina is called Zera Levatana. Bina without Chokhmah has got nothing to work with. It's like Chokhmah needs Bina to express itself, and Bina needs Chokhmah to have something to express. You just can't separate them. That's why Abba and Imma are always in a zebra with each other. Yeah. So that's Chochmah and Bina, and that's how our mind works always. And that's usually that's a very good way of learning the Gemara. Is you'll try and either get through the whole daf or through just read through the sugya and get a big try and get that, and now you involve your Bina. The truth is that the learning of Gemara is very not Chochmah. It's very Binadik. It's mamash Binadik. Just an interesting thing I saw from Shimon Morgenstern, the difference between the Ashkenazi world and Sephardi world is under the chuppah. Is in the Ashkenazi world, the color walks around the chassan. In the Sephardi minhag is the chassan puts a talus over the chassan color, which is a profound symbol. Why? In the woman is bina, yeah. So in the Ashkenazi world, the bina goes around the chochmah. The ik is about bina, yeah. In the Sephardi world, where it's more bakiyas and more kabbalah, etc., yeah, the chassan envelops the color. So it shows you it shows that the minhagim are very, very deep.
The woman's the boss by the Sephardim. The woman's the boss by the Ashkenazim. I think that's really what that's indicating.
That's debatable.
No,
that's not true. That's not true. The women are the boss in the Sephardi, even more so.
He steps on the collar's foot. I'm not joking. It's minute of Sparta.
Really?
That's why why the Ashkenazim smash the glass.
I've been to a lot of chuppahs. I never saw such.
We step on the glass, not on the foot.
Okay. So
Step on the
I
glass.
didn't do it.
The last time you just that.
So look, this is a very helpful thing. This is a very helpful thing. Is we can translate Chochmah as it discovers the idea. That's a really good way of translating Chochmah. It discovers. Chochmah is the discoverer. Yeah, Bina is the developer. Develops the idea. So what's Das? Anyone knows what Das is?
the one who executes.
The workers that come and put it all together.
That's only there.
No,
Next thing in
that's
line.
already
That's
much
up
there.
and
Das is still there's no building takes place in Das.
Plan?
It's the birth. You could say it's the birth of the intellectual idea, but definitely not the builders happen down in Malchus. That's all the way down at the bottom.
The plan, it's like the final plan.
It's the signing the thing that we're going.
Maybe you could maybe say that.
Once everything's running.
So Das
It's the Ratzon of the Seichel.
is what?
Is it the Ratzon of the Seichel, people?
I don't know. But the Pasha way of understanding it is that Das is your faculty that identifies with the idea, and we're going to talk about this a lot because this is Kodesh Kadoshim to understand what it means to identify. What does it mean to identify something? What does it mean on a technical level, a mechanical level? What?
Connected to it.
Yeah. Can you say more?
There's a relationship between two different parts of the same thing.
Okay.
You get upset about it.
Yeah. These are all expressions of what happens when you have that. But what really is it in essence? What?
Understanding?
You think your life is like Taloy on it?
That's
Because it's
very
loose, it's
close.
loose.
The word is merging. Your sense of self and X merge. That's Das. Das is where you become the idea. Not just you have the idea, you are the idea. So you're like, what do you mean I am the idea? I'll tell you an idea that you are. Yeah, you are an idea. 2 times 2 equals 4. You don't have that idea. You are that. That makes up a fiber in the fabric of your human soul. Because you run your life by that calculation. That's part of your, that's part of your outlook on reality. 2 times 2 equals 4. That's part of your soul. So when you know something with Das, you stop quoting the idea. Like you would never think of quoting, your 3rd grade teacher when you explain to your kid that 2 times 2 equals 4. Why not? Shem Oimroi, maybe Geula. Why not say, so I heard from my teacher that 2 times 2 equals 4. Why don't you say that? Because it's yours.
You own it already.
It's yours. Exactly. That's like the idea. I give a nice example of, there's an idea, I'm a big fan of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the ideas he gives there is this idea of dealing with your employees as making them feel that they are and in a real way, not in a manipulative way, that they're the boss. They have their own business that exists within your company. They don't work for you in a sense. They work for themselves, and they've got a department in your business. There's probably millions of firms that actually are not part of Amazon, that work for Amazon or Google, whole businesses that are they're independent businesses, but if Google was to go down, they would immediately vanish. They don't have any other client. So if you can impart that idea over to your employee, and the best way of doing that is by constantly saying to them, you're the boss, and I'm here to help. And, ask me I've done this so I know the ropes a little bit, but I want you really to create your own processes and et cetera, et cetera. If you can really make them feel that then that's the idea. So I've lived with that idea for probably, 10, 15 years. I don't need to quote that in the name of Stephen Covey anymore. That idea is just real to me. That's who I am. You with me? Any idea that's how you see reality, that means that idea entered into your das. So now, if let's say, for example, anybody here right now involved in some kind of project some kind of work project that you could summarize in 1 or 2 or 3 words?
We're going to be doing a fundraiser for here.
So fundraiser, great, perfect example.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good job.
So now you've been involved in this. Now you're about to. It's not just a new idea. You've already moved right into this idea. Yeah. So you're in it like right now. Yeah. So this idea is probably in your dust. If you went out tonight with your wife, you're married. Yeah. If you went out tonight with your wife for a meal, and you're sitting there, and the people on the table next to you, and you heard the guy there say fundraiser, or even what you're going to be using a program.
Yeah, cause match.
What was it called?
Cause match.
Cause match. If you hear the guy next to you say cause match, what would you do?
There's a synergy between what you're doing and what he's doing.
But what would be the actual physical?
Hello, what are you doing?
You would turn your head towards. You would turn your head in that direction, just like in the exact same way if someone called your name.
If you identify with that word.
Yeah. If you've identified with that name and someone says that, you will turn as if they just said Shmuel. I mean, you wouldn't turn if they said Shmuel. I would turn. And there you go. So when they say Shmuel, you would be like that in the exact same way. Like the example I give is for years, I don't care about it anymore, but I use Canon cameras for all my life, So someone says Canon or 2470, or 5D Mark IV, you like that, It's like they just called your name. That means you and that Indian are merged with each other, like your football club. Someone says, whatever, Manchester United, and that's your club, you'll turn around, just like they said Shmuel, just like they said your name. That's called das. That's when something goes into das. So how do you get an idea into das? And again, it's graphic, I'm sorry, but it's really the friction between Chochmah and Bina that gives birth to das, or gets the idea into das. However, you can say, I like that. There's a lot of ways of talking about it. My favourite one is the idea that an idea goes into your das. I look at like das as like a box inside me, which is me. Yeah, that's the me, and then the idea goes in there. Now, so I like to use that expression if it goes into das. And that's all people got all kinds of cool different expressions for it. Yeah.
But you don't want things in there, do you?
No.
You know how many ideas you want in there? You just want one thing in there, don't you?
No, you can't. No. I mean, you also want your 2 times table in there. You can't really help that. Like anything that's true falls into das. If an idea that isn't true falls into das, I think that from what I know, I think that the extraction of that is called Gehenna.
Extraction of what?
If a false idea falls into your das, I think that the cleansing process of that is called Gehenna.
But there's some.
Isn't it just distraction?
Think about that.
It's about associating and identifying with
Distraction's outside of you.
It doesn't
mean
belong
is
there.
or tshuva.
If it doesn't, so So there's different ideas. There's like.
Shmuel, this could easily be identifying things. I mean, if you're at a stoplight and someone walks by and touches your car or whatever, like you're like, hey, these people, you'll react to someone touching your car the way
I
that
think
like
you
react
identify
to
something,
touching
you
me, my
accept
body.
it as real.
So your
and
car
Oh,
is
for sure there's Madrigas.
I'm
Yeah,
saying, so we
you
gotta identify
identify.
with the car.
you
But
go,
the
it's
car is
real.
me.
When you unravel it, that's
If
the
you
problem.
get very angry, there's Madrigas. That's a, sorry, what's your name?
Moshe.
Moshe. So just to, it's kind of the same thing. Is that there's levels and levels to das. There's ideas that you are absolutely identified with, and then there's ideas that you're semi-identified with, and there's ideas that you're hardly identified with, and there's ideas that you're not identified with. So it's a broad spectrum. But if a false idea actually enters into das in a real way, yeah, that needs to get worked out.
What determines what's true and false?
Reality.
Like if you're doing
It's
if
true,
you have an
of course.
invader identity.
Isn't it to some extent there are subjective ideas?
Not well. Not really.
What if somebody lived a life as a
Not-
Darwinist?
What?
What if someone lived their
I mean-
entire life as a Darwinist, believing Darwinism?
what?
Believing Darwinism.
Darwinism,
Man came
yeah.
from apes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, right before he dies, someone goes, by the way, your entire life that you lived was totally wrong. Everything you did, every action you took, because it's not true. So that's, I think, is the Gehenna part. All of a sudden, you unravel your whole life. What was in Das is no longer, is inappropriate. You got to get it the heck out.
So I don't know, like how it works. I mean, is it true? Is gravity true? Is the concept of
There's
gravity?
certain ideas in the world that are objective, but there are other things that are not.
So if we are identified with an opinion, so you're talking they're not. That's not a fact. Then that's an opinion. Yeah. If it's not objective, it means that's my opinion. I feel like this. You
Yeah,
feel like
you
that.
can start
It's a
to
good thing. Trump is a good thing for the
Right,
United
exactly.
States.
And I can identify with that very
Yeah.
deeply.
So that would be something. Discrimination. Oh yeah. That's it. That would be not a good thing to identify with. I'll change it a little bit. You can identify with that as long as at the drop of the hat you're able to disidentify from that. There's not really a problem being identified with these ideas. The problem of being identified with these ideas is when something more true comes in the way. Like, for example, to think that you're God, yeah? Which nearly all of us do. Because if you didn't think you were God, you wouldn't be able to do an Aveira. That ability to go against Ratzon Hashem, this is really the crux of the idea of Gehenna, is identifying with the fact that you are something unto yourself, that you are not a part of a big system, that you look at we identify with ourselves as an independent entity, yeah, separate from reality. That's going to be Gehenna, getting that cleansed out of us. We are part of a big system. Oh, that means you're nothing. No, absolutely not. You're an intrinsic cog in a cosmic, unimaginable system. And without that cog, the whole thing falls to pieces, literally. It's like you've ever seen one of those like fancy Patek Philippe watches, what they call complex. Those watches called complex, where you look at the back, it's like endless cogs and stuff. What?
Complications, right?
Is that what they're called? Yeah.
Yeah, they call that big complication.
I think yeah. So every one of those cogs are intrinsic to the entire system. You with me? Mm-hmm. So this isn't saying you're nothing. This is saying you're an intrinsic part of everything. As opposed to me, I just feel like I'm this big cog. Could be here, could be there. Like, what are you then? You're nothing. It's the irony of it. It's Pasha, the irony. You with me?
Right now you're describing, sounds like the purest, like what the deepest, the highest level of das, right?
Well, that's what you want in your. That's really the real idea that you're trying to get into your das, is to understand that I am
That's what like there's only, in that sense, there should only be one thing in das.
maybe.
But
Right. That's kind of what I'm trying to understand. It's like when you were saying, let's say, with the fundraising idea, so he then almost identifies with the word cost match or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then he's like that. You know, in some way to look at that is that he's almost overly identified because that's taking him away from his he's out to eat with his wife in the middle of a
Well,
conversation.
if that's the point, if that identification overrides any mitzvah or causes him to do any avera,
Right.
yeah, now that's called Elohim Acherim.
That's called
That he's now related to himself as something separate from
is
reality.
that an imbalance?
Whereas to have that relation, you can't avoid. Look, you've sat there for 3 weeks putting this big fundraiser together. Yeah, you've just been looking at this word Chesed Fund for 80 hours. The guy next to you says Chesed Fund. You're like that.
Right.
But that's not a problem until it becomes a steerer to Ratzon Hashem.
Right.
You with me? This is the important point. That's what I said. So it's really not such a problem being identified with X. Like, enjoy your football club. That's fine. But the minute you start taking it seriously to the point where it actually, that would be called an avodah zarah, where it now is fighting with Hashem for dominance. That would be called avodah zarah.
Is that an issue with the Chachma or the Bina, or it's just within the Das?
Well, it's because of the Chochmah and Bina. Chochmah and Bina, there couldn't be Das without Chochmah and
How you
Bina.
address it, right? Meaning if it's a problem within the Chachma or the Bina, which then is contained within the Das.
It's not really a problem. The problem is the Chochmah and the Bina is the relationship was so strong between the Chochmah and Bina. The problem's the idea.
Right.
The thing is false. The thing is not a real thing. So now to identify with this idea and part of the mitzvah, you've been Mekadosh the whole thing. Yeah, like you should be. We could literally talk about dust for a very very long time. But I want to get to this point. This is the point. Yeah? Because again, there's all these interesting sideways we can go, but there's also the it would be a waste of time in a sense. So. Das gives birth to emotion. That's the important point. Why? Because Das is where your sense of self and the idea, merge with each other. So you can appreciate the phrase, I love you. Yeah? How would you say that in regards to understanding that 2 times 2 equals 4? What's the difference between 2 times 2 equals 4 and I love you?
Emotion.
What is subjective? I love you
One's
subjective.
transitory,
The
one's
one is
dependent on something.
not.
2 times 2 is 4
Can
will
change.
exist a long time after I die. Yeah? My love for X, when I die, let's say, goes. Meaning, it's my love. It doesn't exist without me. 2 times 2 equals 4 is completely objective. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. 2 times 2 equals 4 has as much to do with me as it does with you, with you, with you, with you. It has exactly the same to do with all of us. It's completely objective. That's seichel. That's knowing something is seichel. It's just nothing to do with me.
My relationship with 2 times 2 equals 4 is in some ways same as the I love you.
No.
Meaning the idea of love is a global
That's
concept.
das. That means that 2 times 2 equals 4 is falling into your das. Someone turns around to you and says 2 times 2 equals 6. No, it isn't.
Right.
There will be you there.
Right.
You understand? You'll take it personally. Like it will become a personal thing. Have you ever tried to argue with a guy who was saying the most ridiculous thing? I mean, it's just absolutely absurd. And you're like, why do I need to? This is ridiculous.
Right.
Like in that book, in Reclaiming Sanity, it says, there's an argument, some guy saying sound is faster than light. Yeah? How can people get so incensed over... You hear people get incensed over arguments, yeah?
What's the difference between somebody who gets incensed and somebody who doesn't get incensed? It's still just true. It's not... If you say 2 plus 2 is 6, it doesn't bother me. I think there's something wrong with you.
It does bother me.
What?
It does bother me.
Oh, it does?
Like this, when I involved by saying it
What are you
does.
saying? It doesn't bother me?
Let's say like this. Let's make it...
Doesn't bother me.
Make it a little bit more, painful than
Well, let's make it more... Let's make
This
it
way-
more... Let's make it a little more
Just say that
profound.
No,
everything
it is
actually
painful.
round.
If he's a business
I mean,
person, it's totally
that's
painful.
right.
That's what?
If he's a businessman, it's almost saying 2 plus 2 is 6. You're this businessman, it doesn't make any
somebody
sense.
else. You're not going to do business with
Or
It
he'll
is
just
real.
stop talking.
But then loses business. I'm saying something is...
Oh, so if you're involved in it, you have to iron that out. You have to re-educate.
Like the round numbers.
But this is see what happens. What happens when there's a machlokas? Yeah, this is worth just hearing this for the whole shift. This is just one thing you're gonna walk away with. This is the thing worth walking away with. Nearly always, until you become very, very present, very aware, very conscious, very elevated, nearly always a machlokas between two people is about me and you, not about what we're discussing bichlal. That's what it's about. Why? Because I've identified with the speed of sound, you've identified with the speed of light. Now you're trying to kill me. By telling me that I'm wrong is actually you trying to kill me. Why? Because I am one with the speed of sound, with the idea that I'm trying to... I've become one with sound being faster than light. Yeah? I've become one with that. Now you're telling me that's not the case. You're literally... It's like, if I admit that, it will be like experiencing death.
You shouldn't exist.
Exactly. It will be like experiencing death. It's like we spoke about the taiva. Remember the idea of having a taiva? Right. You've identified with the taiva. So there's now not me and a taiva. There's just a taiva. So you're angry. You're fuming. Yeah. There's just anger. And someone says, calm down, relax.
So there's a difference between something being true and then identifying with it.
Yeah, sure.
You can hold something to be true, but it doesn't mean it's like you've identified.
You don't need to identify.
Yeah, it's true as you.
And you want to have a good life. Then only identify with the most important things you need to identify with, like your children, your wife, the Torah, and not your take on the Torah. What?
I only get angry at myself.
Well, you should get angry with somebody else is unpleasant to your children. Always take the side of your children. That's a good tip. Also, always take the side of your employer as well. It's another good tip. So the goal, look, you can't avoid identification. You just can't avoid it, yeah. But the kunz is that you're playing the game and it's not playing you. Meaning you're able to turn around when someone says something horrible about Manchester United, and now you feel the anger rise. And you're like, how dare you? Should know 1984. We should, whatever it is, yeah. And then all it becomes is just a battle of two created beings trying to exist, fighting to the death. It's literally, when you strip away the graphics, it's two entities trying to survive. That's what nearly all of our machlokasim are. Nearly all of them. It's a hard thing to hear, but it's very, but it's really liberating, because now you're in a position to, when your wife says X to you, and now she's like, I can't believe she just went there. I can't believe she went there. Like in regards to me, that's just not to say that. Yeah, but you realise that she's actually trying to hurt you. Yeah, that's why she went there, because you did something to her. Maybe she and you tried to hurt her. And the minute you realise that, you can diffuse the whole thing. Like literally, I had this Shabbos. I had a lovely story with my 8-year-old girl and my 15-year-old girl. And I said this, I give so many shirim, I don't know where I say stuff. I said this somewhere. But it was such a lovely story. It sounds not, but you'll hear. That my 15-year-old girl, as 15-year-olds are with their younger siblings, is like fire. Get this! What are you doing? Why are you so stupid then? Very hard, very hard on their younger children. And so my 8-year-old, who's a very clever girl, we had this random guest stay in our house who was a little bit, maybe not 100%, I don't know what was with her emotionally or whatever. And my younger daughter told this girl that my older daughter hates her. Yeah? So my older daughter, this is on Friday night, yeah? So my older daughter comes back crying her eyes out. I can't believe that she said this, and now it's terrible, and this girl's all angry with me, and she's chatting, she won't talk to me, she's going, and it was a whole mess. I'm like, wow, what'd you do? Like, you shouldn't have done that, that's terrible. So anyway, it was late at night, so everyone fell asleep eventually. I davened, and I came back the next morning after davening, and I took Elisheva and Esther to the kitchen, and I sat them there, like a based in kind of thing. I was the based in, and I turned to Elisha and I said, that is absolutely unacceptable. I told you this, yeah. That's what I said. I said it's absolutely unacceptable to create machlokas and sina amongst Yidden is the worst thing you can do. It's absolutely unacceptable. It's terrible. Mom was terrible. And you can see she's kind of squirming, yeah? And my older daughter's like sitting there like with a smile. And then after enough of that, I turned around and said, but Esther, I understand exactly why she did that. And now the little one started to smile and my older one started to squirm. And I said, this is just what happens. If you treat someone, and then I kept going back and say, this doesn't mean that you're allowed to do that, chas v'shalom. But if you treat someone in the way that you treat her, this is going to happen. There's no way around this. She saw an opportunity to hurt you back. She's much smaller than you. She can't treat you like you're treating her. So she's a clever girl and she took the opportunity and she mamash hurt you. And Esther really understood that. And Elisha really understood that. And I said to Esther, like, why don't you try and talk to her a little nicer. Talk to her nicely. I said, yeah, but she's always like, nah. And I said to Isha, why don't you try and help her talk to you a little more nicely? And this was on Shabbos. And last night, this bit you didn't hear. Last night, Esther turned around to me and said, Abby, you want some nachas? I was like, okay. She said, me and Elisha, we just went out for an ice cream just now. The whole thing, just literally, it can flip around so quickly. If you just become cognizant of what the problem is, just stop. Just be aware of it. That you don't identify. That's called in Lashon Tanya. That's called being Masiach Das. Masiach Das means to disidentify from the idea. If you can be Masiach Das, it doesn't just mean to distract yourself. It means to actually extricate yourself, extract yourself from the idea. Yeah. Then you're in an amazing position to just actually, to turn around everything. Really, a really privileged position. Well, you would never think that was actually in all of this was in that chapter, and we missed out some stuff as well. But that also. So let me just finish off quickly. That is so. So now when we identify with the idea. Because I have become involved, before the identification with the idea, there's no me involved in the idea, just 2 + 2 = 4, yeah? That's just, as like we said, it's the same to me as it is to you. But once I've gone weiter into the idea, and the Chochmah and Bina have been working with each other, yeah? Which is primarily, and again, this is uncomfortable for people, but primarily the avodah of Das, is Chazara. That's really where Das is born, through Chazara, going over the ideas again and again and again and again. The opposite of how YouTube works. So YouTube, when you finish the video, you swipe to the next one, or even Torah anytime. How often did you listen to the same video twice? Yeah, that's not how it's meant to be. If you hear a good video, if you hear something worth listening to, then that was just... On my mission statement I have, if a book was worth reading once, it was worth reading twice. And if it was worth reading twice, it was worth reading 4 times, etc. I live by that. You should see the books in my house, the real books, are torn to pieces. And that's how these ideas become you when you're not quoting anyone. I don't need to quote my Rebbe anymore. Maybe we'll finish on this idea. And it's just my own chiddush, but I think it's cute. You'll like it. It's a cute chiddush. What's the last one of the 48 ways? Last one, 48 ways are the Hoime Dava B'Shem Oimroi. Halamadata Shekol Hoime Dava B'Shem Oimroi Mevi Geula L'Oilam. Yesh Ne'ema V'Toime Est L'Melech B'Shem Mordechai. It brings Geula to the world when you quote it in the name. And again, this is just my cute chiddush. Is when you quote it in the name of someone, it just brings Geula, but it's not the Geula. The Geula is when you don't need to quote anybody anymore. when you don't, not that you shouldn't quote them as a what's the word? As a like a nice thing. How do you say that? A nice thing.
I think it's good. It's also good for you to quote them.
Anyway, it's
good
good.
for you.
But you're not. That's the when the idea. That's the geula of the idea. The idea's had a geula because it's become part of Yid. That's so. I think it's Merama's in the final one of the 48 ways. Yeah, is that the ideas that are worth having, which are really what we're talking about right now, and real Torah ideas. These are ideas that are worth becoming part of your mamash. And I mean, that I've spent the past 15 odd years with these ideas, like obsessively, and you can hear they're not. I'm not quoting my Rebbe, even though everything is b'shem my Rebbe. I hope that these ideas, and then once you understand it with das, once the idea falls into your das, now you see it from this idea, from this place or from this place. And that was one of the reasons this book we put out, Reclaiming Sanity, that there's copies available to people if people want over there. But when you read books, you'll hear ideas that are in completely different language, and you'll immediately recognize the idea. But wow, how do you know that? That's amazing. That's in Tanya. That's the third parak of Tanya. Why? Because you've gone beyond the letters and you've actually gone into the concept mamash, which is beyond letters. Like 2 times 2 equals 4, you could say shtayim kaful shtayim shavet arba. I don't know any other languages, yeah? But you could say that in endless languages. So what's the connection to the actual words and the concept? It's arbitrary. The actual letters are arbitrary. The concept, everybody in the world understands 2 times 2 equals 4 in the same way, no matter what language you speak. That's called going beyond language. That's really the safe. We'll talk about more next week. Okay.
So is there language that's safe? There must be language.
Well,
maybe